Welcome, everybody, to another fabulous episode of Marketing, Management, and Money. I'm your host, Ryan Murray.
And I'm your host, Ryan Owens.
So I'm in a pretty good mood right now because I had a chance to actually
Brush your teeth.
Brush my teeth. Yes,
I'm in a better mood too.
No, I had a chance. My wife, she was a sweetheart, and she planned a little getaway.
Nice.
And we just went and spent the weekend together, and it was really nice. We got out, we did some hiking. It was wonderful. So we come back to the hotel, and right now you've got all of this, the COVID-19 stuff is still going on. They're just relaxing and easing. Like the hotel that we stayed at, there were still some restrictions in place. It was kind of interesting. But as we were there, we're sitting there, and I flip on the TV, find a good old movie that that I really like, and it was on one of those cable network, but riddled with commercials. And I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna put up with the commercials. So I'm sitting there watching this, and the commercials are coming out. And it was driving me crazy because every single commercial was talking about how we're here to help through tough times.
Yeah. And
at some point, I'm sitting here watching this, and I'm just like, really? Are you really here to help? Because there are people who, they've lost their jobs. They don't know what they're going to do. There's a lot of fear. Like, are you really here to help? Or is that just the tagline that every single company has now jumped on board with? That's like, oh, we're here to help. And just to prove it, we're going to. And I'm just like, oh, and it started, just grating at me.
Yeah.
Because it felt so disingenuous that I thought to myself, and the problem is there are people who are out there trying to help, doing their best.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
They've retooled their business to really make a difference. But then there's all those people who are just giving it lip service. And so I want to talk today, and maybe I'm going to rant a little bit, and I apologize if I am, but there's some key wisdom here, and I want to talk about the importance of making sure that your marketing is ethical. Like, so many times, and it's tempting. It's very tempting to just say what sounds good in the moment.
Oh yeah,
and there are companies that have a strong brand promise and they stick to that brand promise even when it's tough. And there are companies who try to sound like they have a brand promise and they'll flip-flop when the next big thing comes around. And so I don't know. And you've got a lot of experience with marketing.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've seen this. How do you deal with this? How do you not get stuck in that trap?
I think one of the best ways to not get stuck in that trap is something you've already said, is to stick to what you do. You know what I mean? I don't think there's anything wrong with taking advantage of an opportunity. If you have an opportunity to retool and make some money off of something going on, by all means. But don't put the veil over it that, is something other than what you're actually trying to do. Be honest. Be clear about it, right?
Oh, okay. And I think everyone's going to agree with that, but here's the slippery slope. Because when you're marketing, you're kind of saying what you want people to think about your company, and sometimes you're already there. Sometimes you want to be there. Let me clarify what I'm getting at here. Okay? So if you say we are the best at customer service, come to us. And that's your whole marketing message. That's your brand promise, is nobody beats our customer service.
Right.
You might be in the process of still training your employees on good customer service. Like that might be the initiative that you're taking on. And so you're going to put yourself out there and you're going to say like, look, we are so committed to this that we are now going to tell people that we are committed to this. We're going to walk the walk, talk the talk. We're doing it all. But a month ago, we weren't there. And so, there's this point at which it's like, okay, this is the direction we're moving. And so we're going to make this brand promise. But I've seen too often where businesses, they will make a brand promise and then they'll stick to that brand promise until it gets a little bit difficult,
Yeah.
And so that's what I want to talk about, or that's what I'd like you to expand on.
Sure. And kind of what I was getting at isn't so much of, a couple of things. Number one, I don't think that there's ever really that point, right, in which you can now say that you offer great customer service, right? Like if that's what you're committed to as a company, if that's what means something to you, if that's why you've started your business, then tout that, even from day one, right?
Okay.
But stick with that when times get tough. And I think that that's the real slippery slope, is that people see something easy, they want to take advantage of it, they can take advantage of it and make money at it as a small business, but it's they try to guise it as, well, I can't just look like a company that wants to make money. How dare I? I've got to help people. And so it's like, oh, we're here to help, so we're offering 20% off so we can increase sales, but don't tell anybody that, and that's the part that really just gets under my skin when I see these marketers coming out with messaging, and the consumer base knows that. Like, just like you, we're sitting here listening to all these, they may not like come out and consciously say, oh, bullcrap, this whole group of companies, all these companies, I'm putting them into this box and they all have this fake messaging. But at some point, consumers are like, bullcrap, we're not buying it. When every company out there is like, we're here to help, so we're doing this. We're here to help, so we're offering 10% off. We're here to help, so 10% of our proceeds will go to, we're here to help, so you can have this coupon code. We're here to help these local schools. And it's like, okay, if you're really there to help, just frickin' help. You know what I mean? Just do something. And then if you can use that and say, hey, we were able to help do X, Y, and Z. Or if you do have free product or something that you're trying to get out there, then yeah, by all means say, hey, what we can offer during this time, like, we know things are difficult. Unfortunately, we can't give things away. So we're here to help by doing what we can. And currently that's 10% off. Or if you can do something for free, just freaking do it. And if you have to advertise to get there, then do the advertising, but be clear about why you're doing it. Don't be like, don't shift the core values of your company, or at least don't give the perception that you all of a sudden have these new core values just because of a certain situation. Okay. Maintain who you are as a brand, stick with that, and be honest about it. You know what I mean?
Okay, so I'm going to come in with a specific thing that I have seen come up, and I think that this is a good example of at what point are you still being ethical. Okay?
Okay.
So a popular marketing logo is made in the USA.
Oh, yeah.
And, if I'm touting made in the USA, but I'm buying stuff from overseas, how do I do that? And you can't. Like, you could have product A made in the USA and product B made overseas, and you can tout product A is made in the USA and not say anything about product B. Is that ethical? Is
that perception carries over? That's that's a fine line. A super gray area. That's not a fine line. It's a super gray area of ethics, right? I mean, and again, I think that so much of those little nuances and different things come back to the core values of a company and why you started that company, why that small business owner or whatever is doing what they're doing today in selling the products that they sell. If part of that is to be fully transparent, then be fully transparent. And that's the thing. That's kind of what I'm trying to get at is like, I feel like in today's day and age of small business and entrepreneurship and, there's so much social media and online presence, and there already is so much transparency in everything that we do that, and so much judgment, right? Mm-hmm. You never know when that hammer is going to fall on you. And nobody wants to risk looking a certain way or risk being perceived as X, Y, or Z, mm-hmm. But in not allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and be transparent, even as small businesses, as entrepreneurs, as business owners, we're essentially we're being dishonest about who we are. We're lying to our customer base, to those who we have business relationships with. And obviously it's, I'm not saying go out and be fully transparent on every level with everyone you come in contact with. Like, that's inappropriate, right?
Right.
But I think there is a need in today's day and age to be able to take a little more risk, be a little bit more vulnerable, and have that be okay. You know what I mean? Have it be okay that we're not perfect, even as small business owners, or, maybe you are just starting out in customer service, and it's got to be okay at some point to be just starting,
Yeah. So as I listen to what you're saying, I think to myself, okay, clearly we are advocating for honest marketing practices.
Sure.
Whatever your message, whatever your brand promise, stick to it. And, I gave the example of the Made in the USA logo. And if you're just putting it on the products that are made in the USA and you're like, look, if I qualify, I'm going to use it. If I don't qualify, I'm not going to use it. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're trying to, have just a couple products that qualify and then you're stretching that into your whole company, like that's stretching the ethical line and you're really not being honest. But the next question that I have is, so in being honest, is it the business's responsibility? At what point does an entrepreneur need to come out with information if the customer's not asking? So, if you have a situation where, let's say that you sell T-shirts,
okay,
all right, and you got a batch in that the stitching on it was not done correctly, and that the stitching was not done correctly. However, it's a small batch, and the next load, the next order that's coming in, the stitching will be done correctly. So, as a business owner, do you take the financial hit and clearance those when your average customer is not going to know? Like, they're not going to know that there was a problem with stitching until, the sleeve starts to tear 6 months after they've made the purchase.
Right.
So do you go ahead and just sell them out normal? Do you clearance them and say inferior stitching and just, be transparent, plastering it up there? And I know this is an entirely hypothetical situation, but it illustrates the point of what's the obligation of the entrepreneur.
See, and I totally get what you're saying, and I appreciate the direction. I think, man, I really need this tattoo. Just, it depends, right? Honestly, it depends on what your brand promises are, right?
Mm-hmm.
If your brand promise is you will get the highest quality t-shirt every time, then absolutely, if you don't, absolutely you should own up to that in some way. And you know that solution can look different. You know, two small businesses that sell t-shirts that have the same exact problem happen at the same time can handle it completely differently while still maintaining that brand promise of always promising the best quality every time. You know, one company may say, hey, we're just going to throw these away. We're going to wait till our new shipment's in. These are just going to be back ordered for now. And the other company may say, hey, we are still going to sell these, but we are going to be very clear that, hey, these aren't perfect like our normal product is. And because of that, if you still want them, then instead of for $700 a t-shirt, you're going to get them for $12 a t-shirt. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But if
$700 a t-shirt?
Sure.
Where do you shop? Better yet, I've got some t-shirts to sell you. 50% off.
No, I only spend that kind of money on fancy dinners. I'm just kidding.
But okay, I said that this was hypothetical. I kind of fibbed a little bit. Wow, I'm talking about ethical marketing,
right?
And here I am fibbing a little bit. There was a company that I was working with in textiles. I changed it. They don't do t-shirts, but they do textiles. And they had this situation where they had a product that came out, and it was not the product that they advertised on their website. Now, it was a small deviation.
Sure.
And I remember them coming to me and asking me my opinion because, you know, as you said, it depends. At some point, these are some judgment calls, and you have to just make a judgment of what's the correct thing to do. Because the extreme case is you don't want to put yourself out of business,
right?
Especially if the customer really doesn't care that much. Like, you know, don't go falling on your sword and crucify yourself over, you know, something that your customer is going to be like, oh, mistakes happen. It's okay.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so to me, this totally comes back to who you are as a company. If you like red hats and you want to wear a red hat, you freaking wear your red hat and you hold it up and say, hey, I like wearing red hats. And they're going to be 70% of people are going to be like, you idiot, we like blue hats, or we like green hats, or we don't wear hats at all. But there will be those people that are like, oh yeah, I like red hats too. Oh, I've never worn a red hat. That looks cool. I want to do that too. You know what I mean? So you're going to draw those people to you. And that's the same thing with what happens with your brand promise, right? You're saying, this is my brand promise, and you hold it up. And there are a lot of people that are like, garbage. And that's what I was talking about with earlier, is like, if you hold it up and you're like, oh wait, I don't want to be judged, so I'm holding up this brand promise too. Well, you can't do that very many times before your customer base and everyone else is like, bullcrap, don't shop with them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you hold up your brand promise and you say, this is what we are, this is what we do, you draw that customer base to you. And as long as you continue to act on that, and there aren't like significant serious changes in the economy or the markets or whatever, as long as you continue to hold up that brand promise and maintain that and be guided in your decisions, because like you said, there are these judgment calls that come up, right? And everybody's going to handle those differently, especially small businesses with different brand promises, even in the same industries, right? Like if you have somebody selling, like, well, to come back to the t-shirt example, if you have somebody selling just a low quality run of the mill, hey, we supply super high volume, tons of these crappy t-shirts, and we do them super cheap. That's a different brand promise than the guy that's like, I'm going to sell you the perfect t-shirt every single time. And those are two different price points or two different customer bases.
Sure.
And decisions from those two companies to the exact same situation are going to be massively different.
Right.
And so as long as, again, like I just keep coming back to that brand promise. As long as you're maintaining that brand promise and not deviating from that and not trying to facade another brand promise as quote unquote your brand promise just to take advantage of a different situation. As long as you're guided by that and you show that, your customer base is going to be fine with whatever you do, right? Yeah. It doesn't matter if that doesn't appeal to people with blue hats or people with shaved heads or whatever. Your customer base is going to be like, oh yeah, that's cool. We get it. Yeah. We're on board.
But as you're talking about, being true to your brand promise, that company that came to me and asked my opinion on, what should they do in this situation. So what they ultimately decided to do was they went ahead and just sold the merchandise, and it was different than what was advertised. Okay. But they had a thing where, and they didn't advertise this portion, but internally they communicated to their frontline sales team. They said, hey, anyone that contacts us or calls in, if they have the slightest complaint or issue, we will automatically send them the right one now that we have it. So, we're gonna send out what we have. It's a little bit different than what we've advertised. And for the people that don't care, we're not going to worry about it. For the people that do care, we're going to give them a free one. It's on us. And the judgment that they made was that it was still an integrity-based decision because they were making sure that their customers were satisfied and taken care of. But they were also balancing out the cost of that, where, if they would have, completely scrapped that whole order, it just, it would have cost them thousands of dollars, and they weren't in a position to lose that. So instead, they're sending out hundreds of dollars of whoops are bad.
Yeah.
Which
to the 1 in 10 who calls in and is like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah. And there might be someone out there who was completely put out and, they never called in. That's very likely. And, it's not a perfect world. You have to make a judgment.
Yeah.
I felt like their judgment was ethical. I felt like they, took a situation, a mistake was made. They were willing to fix their mistake. And so I liked it. I thought it was a good decision.
And I don't think that there's anything wrong with how they handled this situation. And it kind of, as we wrap up here, I think that no matter how you decide to handle any situation that comes up in your small business, as long as, again, you're maintaining your commitment to your brand promise, why you started the company, why that company exists, right? Then however you handle it is going to be fine. Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll talk to you later.
Take care.